Joe Biden says he would have saved 200,000 lives if he had been president. A Nashville mayor lies about COVID numbers. The 1776 commission that President Trump has announced will tackle the 1619 project. Also investigating Princeton for its self-professed racism. Coming up. Welcome to the Buck Sexton Show, my friends. It is Friday. Aren't we all so happy about that? We're going to be heading off into the weekend here shortly, which is a very necessary respite from the insanity all around us. As I've been trying to get people to realize, the stakes in this election that I've been looking at, in a sense, are even higher because they're not going to, all of the data for me now is pointing in this direction. They're not going to use, if Biden wins, the election as an opportunity to give all the peasants, which is what we are, the American people, give all the peasants their freedoms back. They're going to extend out this insane lockdown, regulation, mask mania bullcrap as long as they possibly can. As long as they can. Because everyone is fearful. Everyone is doing what they're told. No one's even asking, is this legal? Is this constitutional? Is this intelligent? No, just do what you're told. We've been doing what we've been told for months. You know what's going on right now in Europe? You're not going to hear about this from the mainstream media because they don't want to talk about it. You're having a big spike in cases in countries that have had the most severe lockdowns possible. I mean, countries that were telling people, enforcing with police, you have to stay in your home. You can't. Italy, Spain, extreme lockdowns, and they're now hitting all-time highs in cases. It's almost like you can lock people in their homes and slow down the virus, but all you're doing is slowing it. Because the moment that you allow people to have their lives back, there's going to be some spread of the virus. And this is what they've never grappled with in this strategy, or they just don't care, right? It was locked down for 15 days, 30 days, 90 days, 6 months. Now then it was until a vaccine. Now it's beyond the vaccine. Now they're telling us masks are even more effective, as the CDC director did. Even more effective than a vaccine. Think of the recklessness. Think of the malpractice from the medical and scientific community. If all we had to do was wear masks, why didn't they tell us that the first 90 days of this? Because, of course, it's not true. Even if they help at some level, there's still going to be a lot of sickness out there. If all it took was masks, why did it not work in the Spanish flu pandemic of 1918 at all to slow the spread of this virus? Or that virus, I should say. Didn't work at all. A lot of people running around. They had cotton masks back then, too. But here we are, folks. We are in a period of mass hysteria coupled with mass media, and the results are not good. And then that brings me to Joe Biden and what a completely outrageous, despicable clown this guy is. But now he's supposed to be the president of the United States. You know, Donald Trump, I understand rough edges and thin-skinned, and there's this criticism. There's criticism of him that people can level, and some of it is pretty accurate. But he represented ideas. He represented something when he was running for president. And a lot of them were ideas that people needed to hear because they hadn't in a long time. And that was why he was a one-man political movement. What exactly does Joe Biden represent? Whatever the Democrats who are going to be pulling his strings want him to. It's just the machine, the left-wing socialist Democrat machine against everybody who's not a part of it. That is what the Biden presidency or the Biden campaign that wants to be a presidency has turned into. And now we have no degree of absurdity is too much for people to say. And people walking around in panics. Here in New York, we're going to go and we're the only city that I can think of in the country that does not have indoor dining yet, folks. So that's probably why I'm still more sensitive to this than others. But we can't do indoor dining. By September 30th, they're saying 25%. I spoke to a restaurant owner last night because I was out at an open air restaurant because that's all you're allowed to do. She said that they lost they own, it's a restaurant group really. They own a few places in New York. One of them is incredibly well known, beautiful place. I've been there. It's one of the most romantic restaurants in the city. Gone. And they're like, we're not sure we're ever going to be able to, reopen it. Oh, okay. And she's saying, what exactly are we supposed to make of this? Why is it 25%? Other places already at 50%. Why do we open at 25% when we've been? And the answer is this is all just being made up by morons who want to control us. It's actually worse than they just want to make the country miserable, which has been my thesis. That's true. They want to make America miserable for the purposes of beating Donald Trump in the election, keeping the economy suppressed. That's all true. But now the propaganda has seeped in so deeply that they really believe it. Now we are at a phase here in all of this where they actually think that if Joe Biden had been president, there would be 200,000 people who would have survived all of this. 200,000 people who would have lived. Here is Biden saying last night exactly that. Play 3.
If the president had done his job from the beginning, all the people would still be alive. All the people, I'm not making this up, just look at the data. Look at the data. And then we're now being told there's going to be I pray to God there's a vaccine tomorrow that could be available to everyone.
If he had done his job from the beginning, all the people would still be alive. All the people, I'm not making this up. Just look at the data. That's what he says. Okay. Why then did Trump kill all these people in Spain and the UK and Italy and France and Germany and Brazil and Mexico and China? Why was Trump killing all those people too? Because clearly it's because Trump didn't do his job. I know it's so stupid that you can't really say these things out loud without feeling like you're somehow corrupting your own brain. But that's where Democrats are now. You see, it started out, I believe, as just politics for them. Come on, guys, lock us down, and some degree of fear. But now the fear has actually gone beyond the politics for many of them. Now they really believe this nonsense. They really think this is true. They are absurd. Absurd. Biden would have saved 200,000 lives. Joe Biden is a moron. Even Democrats know Joe Biden is a moron. But he's the best they got. They need somebody tied to Obama with big name recognition who can fool swing state voters into thinking you're not going to get a radical left presidency if he wins. That's what you're going to get. He is a Trojan horse. And he can say anything and the media will let it fly. In fact, they agree with this stuff. Here's Nicole Wallace, former Republican, allegedly. I swear, the Bush administration former Republicans who have turned on Trump they're the worst. They really are. Because it's all so obvious. It's so petty. It's just because they're not important anymore. And they don't have the political access that they did for a period of time. It's not about principle. It's not about, you cannot be a conservative and work at MSNBC now. It's not possible. Okay. You can't be a host, have your own show at CNN or MSNBC and be a Republican at all. You have to really be actually a lunatic at this point, or just a fraud. I mean, a person who will say whatever and pretend that they're not doing the bidding of the DNC all the time. Here's Nicole Wallace at MSNBC, Play 9.
You know, Ashley's reporting, Michael Steele, is a blueprint for the negligence, not just of human life, of course, most importantly, of human life. He's got the blood of 200,000 Americans on his hands. But also the destruction of the economy didn't have to be what it was. If he knew that it was airborne, he knew that it was contagious, he knew that it was deadly, he could have taken steps to help businesses prepare for a longer stretch of curbside delivery or the sorts of things that are in place, as you said, in countries like Australia that have come out on the other side. To me, these failures obviously destroyed the lives of the family members of 200,000 Americans, of our neighbors and our friends and our teachers and our doctors and our nurses and our grandparents and tragically some of our children. But he also destroyed a lot of businesses that had been there for generations.
The population of Australia is about 25 million people, and it's an island, the whole thing. If we're going to talk about countries, so it's very easy to limit travel. You have far less crowded living conditions. But if we're really going to talk about this, let's compare ourselves to other countries that have been going through this and that are currently now seeing big spikes. What's the answer for that? Why is that happening? Wear a mask, they all say. What? How is that saving us? Hawaii put an outdoor mask mandate in place for which there is no scientific basis whatsoever. And Biden even alluded to that. He said, well, if you're at a protest and you're outside, you're kind of moving. So, social distancing is not as necessary. I mean, yeah, that's actually somewhat true, but that should be true for everybody. It is true for everybody, not just the protesters for BLM. But people have they're sick in the head over this now. Instead of blaming those they should, the medical establishment that has messed up at every stage of this, gotten this wrong constantly, they are now angry at anybody who's asking the questions, the obvious questions, and blaming Trump for everything. Here is the CDC director. Again, I played one for you yesterday. Here's the CDC director back in February of this year. Play 2.
Because I do see people feeling a need to go buy masks. And I would ask them, and some people scoff at me when I say this, we need to make sure those N95 masks are available for the doctors and nurses that are going to be taking care of individuals that have this illness. And it really does displease me to find people going out. There's no role for these masks in the community. These masks need to be prioritized for healthcare professionals that, as part of their job, are taking care of individuals and or individuals who have this virus and are in home isolation or home quarantine for those family members. So I'd like to have prioritize the uses that we recommend and get people to realize that that's where these masks need to be reserved for.
Medical personnel. That was the standard. That real medical masks should only go to medical personnel, people that are going to be in constant contact with the virus, for whom even a small level of protection may be worthwhile under the circumstances, right? Meaning, even if it's only a small percentage effective, maybe it's even more than that, but not for everybody else. That's crazy. Oh, now it's crazy to say, wait, what? We're supposed to do this all the time? We're supposed to have this happen? Unbelievable, friends. Unbelievable. But this is where we are, because you're going to see something happening right now. It's not just that Trump didn't show leadership. That's not enough. That's not enough for the hysterics, the left, the libs, the lunatics. It's that Trump killed 200,000 people. They're saying this. I mean, that he's responsible for the deaths of 200,000 people, for whom, the median age is 75, and most of them had pre-existing conditions. Not to say it's not incredibly sad for each and every life that is lost, but as a public health issue, we're never allowed to discuss who's really at risk, what's really been going on here. It's wear a mask, sit down, shut up, do what you're told, watch your business get destroyed, and then watch morons go on TV and say that Donald Trump killed 200,000 people. That's where we are as a country. Oh, CNN's health expert, Dr. Gupta. Play 6.
A source told me last night that, there have been so many people who have known the right thing to do, have sounded the alarm on this, and going back to middle of February, talking about the fact that this virus could be spread asymptomatically and that everything needed to change as a result. And that this is what my source said, every step along the way, this guidance that could have saved, 80 to 90% of the people who have died could have been saved if this guidance had been abided by. Every step of the way, that guidance had been buried and then minimized, then ignored, and now ridiculed. That's what's happening. I mean, it's not that hard. The guidance was not that challenging. It could have been done, but it was buried, minimized, ignored, and now ridiculed. So here we are, as we go into flu season, still in that same sort of position. Everyone's counting on the vaccine. Everybody wants the home run hit. Even if we get the vaccine, it's going to take time to actually get people vaccinated and protected. We have to do these other basic health measures for some time to come, and we're still not.
Complete rewriting of history. What was this guidance that was ignored by Trump in the middle of February? What was the guidance that was ignored? Not even Fauci says that Trump ignored any guidance. So what was supposed to be different? And why did all these other countries ignore the guidance that would have saved 90% of COVID deaths? This is just a massive campaign of lies. These people are lying to you, and they're going to keep lying. They don't care that it's not true. They're hoping that if they say it enough, people will believe it. And unfortunately, when it comes to propaganda and brainwashing, that's pretty effective. So this is why I spend some of our time here just reminding everyone, hoping some of you will share it with your neighbors who perhaps are on the fence or not sure if they're going to vote for Trump. What they're being told about Trump's response to this virus and what really happened is a fairy tale or a nightmare. It's false. Just look at it logically. How could anyone think when we see what's happened around the world that this is all up to Trump? Here, I'll bring you up to speed on what's going on in some other places. From one of the best thriller writers of all time, #1 New York Times bestselling author Vince Flynn comes Total Power, a Mitch Rapp novel by Kyle Mills. In this next thriller in the best-selling Mitch Rapp series, it's a race against the clock when ISIS takes out the entire U.S. power grid and throws the country into chaos. Story keeps you on the edge of your seat while taking you through a destructive cyber attack on our nation, making you ask yourself, will it be lights out for America, or can our top assassin save us from plunging into darkness? The Real Book Spy calls Total Power a serious contender for Best Book of the Year. If you're a fan of suspense and thrillers, if you love the Mitch Rapp series about an elite counterterrorism agent, you're going to love this book. Take Back the Power, Total Power. This is the new Mitch Rapp thriller from Vince Flynn. It's available now in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is one of the best thrillers you're going to find. Perfect time of the year to dive into it. Take Back the Power with Total Power. Here we go. This is in the Wall Street Journal. Europe's COVID lockdown lessons. America's Democrats, this is by the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal. America's Democrats often say they want to emulate Europe, and given their fondness for coronavirus lockdowns, we can only hope this time they mean it. Parts of Europe, like parts of the U.S., are experiencing surges in the new COVID-19 cases. Unlike many in the U.S., European leaders have learned from their early experiences with the virus. The uptick in cases, as measured by positive tests, is noticeable across the continent. With one exception, the renewed outbreak is worst in Spain and France, whose 7-day rolling average of new cases per million residents are about 215 and 130 respectively, from lows of about 8 during June. The rise elsewhere is less severe but still pronounced. Germany is up to 20 or so cases per million residents from 4 earlier in the summer. These surges aren't discriminating on the basis of previous government policies. Italy, Spain, and the UK were hotspots in the pandemic's first wave and all imposed strict lockdowns. All three are suffering new waves from the disease anyway. So is Germany, which avoided the worst ravages of the first wave. At the time, Berlin's aggressive test and trace program coupled with a moderate lockdown were held as a public role model for health. Now it's fair to say the jury is out on whether Germany permanently suppressed the disease or delayed its inevitable spread. Oh, gosh. Now we get to this. One theme is that politicians increasingly are alert to the health and economic dangers of mass lockdowns, including mass unemployment, miseducation, and psychological ills. Another theme is that European leaders are now more inclined to focus on individual responsibility than government action. There's only so much a government can do, the coordinator of European Union Pandemic Advisory Panel told the Journal. Yeah, no crap, folks. The government can't protect people, can't stop this. It's all nonsense. Just look at what's going on around you. He suggests emphasizing steps individuals can take, social distancing and mask wearing. If that sounds familiar, it's because Sweden's approach throughout the pandemic, it has been Sweden's approach. The country eschewed a mandatory lockdown and urged prudent individuals to do measures like work from home and social distance when possible. Yeah, as in, live your life, don't be crazy, take basic precautions. We're not making all kinds of stupid rules. They made stupid rules in those other European countries, but I guess it's Trump's fault that they're having big cases, big spikes in cases right now.
I would like to see the governors enforce mask wearing, period. I can do that on federal property. As president, I will do that. On federal land, I'd have the authority. If you're on federal land, you must wear a mask. In a federal building, you must wear a mask. And we could have a fine for them not doing it. Look, this is about saving people's lives. There's no question that it saves people's lives.
To those
Zero.
who say it's individual liberty not to wear a mask.
Well, let me tell you something. You know, what Bill Barr recently said is outrageous. That is like slavery. We're taking away freedom. I would tell you what takes away your freedom. What takes away your freedom is not being able to see your kid, not being able to go to the football game or baseball game, not being able to see your mom or dad sick in the hospital, not being able to do the things. That's what costs our freedom. And it's been the failure of this president to deal with this virus. And he knew about it. He knew the detail of it. He knew it in clear terms. Imagine had he at the State of the Union stood up and said, when back in January I wrote an article for USA Today saying, we've got a pandemic, we got a real problem. Imagine if he had said something. How many more people would be alive?
What takes your freedom, what takes your liberty is Joe Biden and the Democrat Party, actually. It's not all these other things he's talking about. It is what Biden wants to do. And this is what I want everyone to understand. If he wins, they're going to continue this. They like this. They enjoy this. They want to tell you what to do. And there are a lot of libs out there who like to be told what to do. Doesn't matter what the reality is. Doesn't matter what the costs may be. They're like, yeah, order me around, please. I'm one of the good people. I listen. This whole thing has turned, it's almost like a religious cult now for people. They don't listen to reason. They don't look at the facts. They just believe whatever they're told. How many times do I have to sit here? People right now in New York will they'll walk through a restaurant and have to put on their mask. And if you don't, people will get, I had somebody for the first time saying to me, wear a mask. I'm walking past the person. I'm not near you. I'm social distancing. What? Go blank yourself. I told him to call the health authorities on me. I'll wait for their call. That was fun. He can go F himself. But yeah, what is this? You walk through a restaurant now and you have people who think that if you're not wearing a mask, then you're a bad person. But then you sit down at the table for an hour and a half, 2 hours, breathing, because, you can't eat food without, with a mask on. This is idiocy. We are being ruled by idiots. Fauci, these people are morons. They're losers. They don't know how to protect you. They don't know how to save you. They don't have any ideas about what to do with public health policy that's going to make anything better. Sweden, which was an experiment in human sacrifice, right? It was the worst thing. It's like, we're done. Basically, no one wearing masks anymore. They're like, yeah, we did what we could, and we went about our lives. We didn't shut everything down. They're economically in better shape than other countries. But no, it's so much more fun for people. So it's so much more fun for people to just go around acting like we haven't seen what we've seen. I don't know. We are in a period where nothing is making sense anymore, with all these lunatics running around who think that Trump killed 200,000 people. They really, and they think that our side is crazy. I mean, Joy Behar is one of the dumbest people on television, perhaps one of the dumbest people in the country. I mean, I think she would certainly be a good candidate. She thinks that people that have a problem with any of this are the problem. Play 18.
What interested me also was his use of the term herd mentality. Now, it's really herd immunity that he meant to say, but it's an interesting Freudian slip, isn't it? Because it kind of describes the people who continue to follow him. They're in a herd mentality, like lemmings going over a cliff. And I might add that, as Howard Stern said, he has nothing but contempt for this herd. So he put it out there because he secretly thinks that they're horrible people. That's what I think.
Lemmings going over a cliff. Who are the lemmings? The people that pretend that the constantly changing guidance, the metrics that they'll just dispense with the moment that they don't like what the metrics are anymore. The make-believe test and trace program in New York and in other places across the country. Who are the lemmings? The people that just go along with all this stuff? Or the people that realize, as the Attorney General of the United States said, this is the greatest intrusion on our civil liberties since slavery. And I throw in there the internment of the Japanese during World War II by a Democrat, Japanese Americans, by a Democrat. But this is not, this is, if you take out intrusions on civil liberties on a massive scale that occurred because of racist policies of the past, there's only a few other areas where you'd say if you then, you got to go women's suffrage, but this is a big problem. And I'm still in shock that there aren't more people who are outraged by this. And I know some of you, when I was in North Carolina, no one takes this all that seriously. When I was in Montana, there are people indoors eating. They're not worried, not wearing masks. Not everyone's all freaked out about it. And it's amazing if you read the polls, if you see what's going on, the general public thinks that if you're under the age of 30, you're 50 times at risk, more at risk than you actually are. 50 times. Which is another way of saying people are terrified that if they're 25 or 30, 40, my age, if they get this, that they're going to die. And the chance of them dying from this is for that age group is less than the flu. So what are we even talking about here? Does everyone walk around terrified? Oh, if I get the flu all the time. No, of course not. It is very dangerous to elderly people and people with serious health conditions that affect their immune system and affect their ability to fight this off. But that's not what the general public thinks. They don't realize that almost half of the deaths have occurred, not just among senior citizens, in nursing homes specifically. And here's something that you should know about nursing homes. A lot of them are very poorly sanitized, poorly run, and are places where disease spreads quickly and has been for years before COVID. So if anything, maybe it would be a silver lining out of all of this if nursing homes were better cared for, stricter protocols to do protection for our vulnerable seniors. But that's not what's going on. Now it's just maximum panic. The frenzy is upon us right now, and Trump is responsible for all of the deaths. Trump is responsible for all of this. This is what they're saying. It's really stunning. It's kind of astonishing, isn't it? We think about how stupid that idea is, but that people say it out loud. And you're seeing also the weak-minded, the foolish, the easily brainwashed. You're seeing it all across society now. We should be talking about how we're just going back to normal life. If you want to sit at home with a mask on all day and be terrified, it is your right to do that. But it is not the government's right to inflict incorrect, medically unsupported policies on people on an ad hoc basis because it feels like it. And it is unconstitutional. It is a violation of individual liberties. It absolutely is. It absolutely is. And if it's not, well, then I need someone to explain why shouldn't they just mandate that we wear masks at home too? Why should we mandate social distancing for the next 6 months? Start fining people $1,000 if they are, less than 6 feet apart from each other, because we'll start tearing our society apart. Because there'll be a subset of sanctimonious morons who go around and, in a way that's completely capricious, call people out on this. We saw this with the medical community that came forward during the BLM protests, and we're excusing that. So, see, that's the thing. Liberals don't actually believe in principles or facts or rules. They believe in power and what makes them feel good. So it'll always be this ad hoc, we're going to use this as a weapon against people we don't like. We're going to excuse people we do like, or people that we pander to, or that we pat on the head. And ultimately, this is about making the country believe that Donald Trump is the reason that anyone has died from COVID, which is just an intellectually reckless, irresponsible, completely unjustifiable, really an insidious thing to say. And Joe Biden is saying it. So this is not, I'm not saying something that's taken from the extremes of their party and presenting it. This is the mainstream thought now. They understand what the stakes are.
We created this rush, and we didn't have the ability to test or quarantine those people. And so that seeded the disease here. The ban probably accelerated that the way it was executed.
I just want to pick up on that. You're saying that the travel bans made the situation worse, not better?
March saw this incredible explosion, the West Coast coming from China, and then the East Coast coming out of Europe. And so even though we'd seen China and we'd seen Europe, that testing capacity and clear message of how to behave wasn't there.
So what are we supposed to have done differently? That was Bill Gates. What was the big thing that we were told we had to do that would have stopped all of this? It's never made clear, is it? It's never made clear. It's just always the repetition of political attacks under the pretense that there's some science behind this, that this is all about making people obey the experts. Obey, you're told. I don't know. I thought this country had a pretty big problem with untrammeled, unlimited authority in the hands of people. I thought that was kind of the whole point of this place we've got here, that wouldn't happen, and it absolutely has been happening. Senator Schumer's upset with Trump pointing out that the worst outcomes are the bluest states that adopted masks among the fastest of any place and had the strictest lockdowns. New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, among the very worst of all states on a per capita basis. New York and New Jersey, the actual worst. So Democrats entirely in charge in these places. No Republicans, even on city council, really, maybe one or two in New York. Very few people to weigh in on any of this. You got a Democrat governor in New Jersey, in Massachusetts, in New York. And Schumer doesn't like, the senator from New York, Trump's comments about how the blue states were the worst with this. Play 8.
He denied there was a shortage. He downplayed there was a need. He deflected blame. He even blamed President Obama. And by the way, I cannot resist. His remarks yesterday were outrageous. That if you count only if you don't count the people who died in the blue states, COVID wouldn't be so bad. Is that unbelievable? What does he say to someone, these governors? So someone in California or New York, you don't have a Democrat, or New Jersey or Illinois who passed away. What does he say to their families? You don't count. We're only counting people in the red states. What a despicable man. How low can he go?
That's not what he's saying, Chuck Schumer, but isn't that an excellent little case study in deflection? See, they say, oh, he acts like the blue state people don't count. That's not what he's saying. That wasn't the point of the comment. The point is, if you're going to start pointing fingers at people for who did a really bad job with this, the Democrat one-party state-controlled places like New York and New Jersey were the worst by far. And if you didn't have those horrible Democrat responses, controlled responses to the virus, if we're going to look at this as sort of a scoreboard, if we're going to look at this based on the metrics and the numbers, America would be on a per capita level ahead even of some of the European countries that are currently maybe a little bit behind us in terms of per capita deaths and hospitalizations. That's all he's saying. It's a valid point, right? But you see, friends, now it's just, where are we at? It's September 18th. You got 6 weeks. They're going to throw all they've got at this. You're going to see levels of Trump derangement that will blow your mind. You're going to see lunacy from these people that is going to be truly shocking to anybody who hasn't been watching it and preparing for it for months. They cannot handle the prospect of Trump actually winning re-election, and so they will view it as a moral necessity to do everything they absolutely can in order to prevent that, including doing immoral things, including lying, perhaps cheating with the mail-in ballots, whatever it may be. But the constant stream of lies about this, I mean, my criticism of Trump on COVID is that he listened to the experts too much. My criticism is that now everyone's saying Dr. Redfield is a weirdo. He's kind of an idiot. He can't really be trusted. Oh, okay. So because he's finally said stuff that's really jumped the shark, we're supposed to just believe that, now, Fauci is still some kind of genius on all this. What exactly has he said that's been helpful? Nothing. What's the procedure that's been put in place that has worked so very, very well? I mean, people, and understand this, they will never back off of this. They will never say that they were wrong. So don't think that at some point we'll get to the truth, or in a few years they'll say, you know what, the people who are skeptical about these policies, I guess they really had a point. No, they won't. They won't. They certainly don't want to be held accountable for it, and they also don't want people to realize they're just not that smart. They're just not that bright. Speaking of not that bright, we should discuss what the plans are from people like Ocasio-Cortez if Biden comes into office. You know, Joe Biden is meant to be very similar to what Bob Mueller was for the Mueller probe. His role, Mueller's role, was to say, look, here's this guy. He's in the FBI a long time, FBI director. How partisan can this thing really be if he's in charge, right? If Bob Mueller is the guy, you know, he was in the Marines, served in Vietnam, he's in the FBI, you know, that was a way of silencing the criticism of the obvious partisanship of the Mueller probe. And I mean, I got to tell you, some of us knew right away, well, this is a fraud. This is a scam. Weissman, who's a clear Democrat partisan, I mean, a headhunting Democrat, you know, never Trump, hates Trump, left-wing activist lawyer, was the guy really running the whole thing. He was the guy running the probe. He was the one who everyone believes actually wrote the final report. It was all him. But they had to have Mueller in place to deflect the criticism of what was clearly happening. And then we all saw Mueller go up, I didn't read the report, and I don't know what's going on. You know, the guy had no idea what the heck was happening. It was very obvious. It was actually kind of sad. And by that point, though, it had already served its purpose. It didn't even matter that we find out that they were lying to us all along. Joe Biden is going to be Mueller in this analogy. Joe Biden is going to be the guy who's doing what the left tells him to do. So no one should be fooled by the, good old blue-collar Joe who rides the Amtrak. He's going to be riding the Marxist Express, folks.